Taylorism. Its main objective was improving economic efficiency, especially labour productivity driven by man, a rational animal concerned only with maximising his own personal economic gain. It is stated that people within manufacturing can be treated in a standardised fashion, somewhat like automatons. This process of scientific management, coined by Taylor, peaked in influence in the 1910s, and is concerned only with maximising output. No consideration to human or social needs. Motivation is high wages, according to Frederick Taylor. Workers were paid a piece rate. For every item produced, they received a set amount of money. He believed in a high level of managerial control over employees' work practices, and that the manager's position is to tell employees what to do in this hierarchical structure. In turn, employees must accept these terms and fulfill them without any griping. Under Taylorism, workers' work efforts increased in intensity, and they became exponentially dissatisfied within the work environment. Hostility was at an all-time high, with strikes occurring globally.
Well, actually, in 1901, it wasn't all doom and gloom. Welfare secretaries were introduced due to the harsh working conditions and an increase in industrial franchise. These punitive work conditions existed as there was no limits in working hours, no legislations for holidays or sick pay, and not to mention the incredibly dangerous and filthy working conditions. It is widely considered that in the early 1900s, a woman's place was keeping a clean house and raising the children. During the early years of suffrage, the traditional roles that women were eligible for included domestic roles, textile factory work and teaching. The welfare secretary's main concern was that of the plight endured by women and girls in these working environments. As the role of the welfare secretaries grew, there was a noticeable conflict of interest. They were mainly worried about the welfare of women and girls, but now had to consider the effect of quantity of output produced. The welfare secretaries, later known as the welfare officers, had a very challenging job ahead.
The Labour Representative Committee became a hot topic in the early 1900s due to growth in trade unionism. They later changed their name and became what is better known today as the Labour Party. They won 42 parliamentary seats in 1910. Politicians feared that if conditions did not change, that the workforce would turn to communism or even rebellions. During the period of 1908 to 1912, Taylor's theory of scientific management failed to survive the Industrial Reformation. During this time period, the following policies were established in the United Kingdom. In 1908, a mandatory 8-hour workday was introduced in Britain for both coal and iron miners. In 1909, the Labour Exchange was founded to help the unemployed find work. This later became known as the Job Centre. In 1910, the Merchant Shipping Act was established to improve the conditions of sailors doing cross-continental logistics. Also in 1910, merchants gained the right to take half a day off per week. In 1911, the National Insurance Act was passed, containing various new policies, such as free medical care for workers, a new concept of sick pay, and finally, it entitled people to unemployment benefit, also known as the dole.
So in 1913, the Welfare Workers Association was founded. They are known today as the CIPD. They are a specialised association for human resource management professionals. The CIPD was first founded with 34 members. 29 of these members were female. This figure shows the hard work of the welfare secretaries. The membership was made compulsory in ministry-controlled establishments such as munitions factories. This led to an increase in unionism and therefore an increase in welfare officers. Which leads me to my next point. Only 3 years later, over 1,000 welfare officers had been appointed, 600 of which were members of the WWA. Fact.
Balderdash,
Our discussion on the
this farce. Liberal officers, L-O, liberal officers. But enough of that. Over to my friend Master J. Bunting III for more on the war.
Thank you, Lord Maxwell. On June 28, 1914, Austrian-born Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, thus initiating World War I. This brought many nations, including ourselves, to the brink of destruction, turning Europe against itself and killing millions of people. By 1916, the government of Westminster introduced conscription to the people of Britain, stating that single men between the ages of both 18 and 41 were likely to be called upon to fight for their country. This took many men away from their work as they were destined for foreign lands. Due to the rapid reduction of working men in the country, women had to dedicate their lives to industrial work. Factory floors were flooded with females new to work, which in turn led to remedial work prevailing over craftsmanship. As the war continued, pressures on munitions manufacturing increased, leading to many unskilled female workers doing dangerous jobs in harsh conditions. Although the WWA was in full swing, these conditions were rarely avoided, as it was through necessity.
After World War I, focus was directed predominantly towards the training of disabled ex-servicemen. This allowed them to get back into employment and bestowed them with the trade union membership to help them carry on with their day-to-day lives. The UK government shows a concern for a significant lack of skilled craftsmen and tradesmen, and compensated for this by creating initiatives to bring in foreign workers to subsidize the absence of their regular workforce. Alongside the previous point, there was a concern for elevating mass unemployment as men came back from the war. This meant a potential for many unhappy returning soldiers. The blood of the men affected boiled as they began to believe that women had stolen their jobs away from them and were no longer in the role they had been in when the soldiers had left for war. As an initiative to get women back in the home and men back in the workplace, day nurseries had closed post-war, forcing women to stay home and take care of the children. It may have been done distastefully, but by God was it successful. Oh, and talking of women, here's one now. Oh my, what a kerfuffle.
Oh, hello, I am back again with some fantastic news. Eventually, after years of suffrage and persistence, the right for women to vote was passed. Unfortunately, this didn't make us instantly equal. However, it's estimated that 8.5 million women gained the right to vote in 1918. This figure shows that 40% of the UK's women's population voted. With this in mind, it gave positive steps towards cultural equality in the modern work environment. And finally, by 1920, the WWA had gained a further 420 members, 400 of which were female. This alone gives me great satisfaction and pride in the important role women had in the evolution of human resource management. Men suck eggs.
That's all, folks.